Here's $1,000. Just hold my hand, the CEO said, not expecting the poor girl to change his life. The $1,000 hand. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sterling and Cross Financial as Marcus. Whitmore stood alone in his corner office, staring at the city lights 43 stories below. At 38, he'd built an empire that most men only dreamed of, a net worth that could feed a small country, a penthouse that overlooked Central Park, and a reputation that made Wall Street veterans tremble. But tonight, clutching the doctor's report with trembling fingers, none of it mattered. Stage 4 inoperable. 6 months, maybe 8 if he was lucky. Marcus had spent his entire adult life building walls around his heart, around his time, around anything that resembled human connection. His father had taught him that weakness was the only sin in business, and he'd learned that lesson well. 3 failed relationships, a brother who hadn't spoken to him in 5 years, and a mother who'd stopped calling after he missed her 70th birthday. For a merger meeting in Tokyo, he'd traded humanity for success. And now, facing the end, he wondered if he'd gotten the worst deal. He grabbed his coat and left the office without a word to anyone. The streets of Manhattan pulsed with their usual Friday night energy, couples laughing, friends bar-hopping, people living lives that suddenly seemed infinitely more valuable than his. Marcus walked aimlessly, the diagnosis burning in his pocket like a coal, until he found himself in a part of the city he normally avoided. The buildings here sagged with exhaustion. Graffiti bloomed on brick walls, and the American dream felt like a cruel joke. That's when he saw her. She was sitting on the steps of a closed laundromat. Maybe 22 or 23, with tangled auburn hair and a jacket too thin for November in New York, but it wasn't her appearance that stopped Marcus in his tracks. It was what she was doing. She was sharing her dinner, a single sandwich from a convenience store, with an elderly homeless man, breaking it carefully, down the middle despite the fact that she looked like she hadn't eaten properly in weeks. Something inside Marcus cracked. He approached them, and the girl looked up with eyes that reminded him of his younger sister before. Life had taught her to be afraid. Green eyes, clear and direct, without judgment or expectation. Here's $1,000, Marcus heard himself say, pulling out his wallet and extracting 10 crisp $100 bills. Just hold my hand. The girl stared at him like he'd lost his mind. The homeless man shuffled away, sensing the strangeness of the moment. Marcus stood there, hand outstretched with money, in one palm and the other open and empty, waiting. Are you serious right now? Her voice carried a slight Southern accent, Georgia maybe, softened by time up north. Completely serious. $1,000. You just have to hold my hand for 1 minute. Here's $1,000. Just hold my hand, the CEO said, not expecting the poor girl to change his life. She looked at the money, then at his face, studying him with an intensity that made Marcus uncomfortable. Most people saw his expensive suit, his Rolex, his aura of power. She seemed to see something else entirely. What's wrong with you? She asked, and there was no malice in it, just honest curiosity. I'm dying, Marcus said, and it was the first time he'd spoken the words out loud. Cancer, 6 months. And I just realized I can't remember the last time another human being touched me with actual kindness. So here's $1,000, cash, for 60 seconds of your time. Just hold my hand and let me remember what it feels like to be human. The girl stood up slowly. She was shorter than he'd expected, barely reaching his shoulder. She ignored the money completely and took his hand in both of hers. Her fingers were rough, working hands, cold from the November air, but somehow radiating warmth. She didn't say anything, just held on, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years, tears streaming down his face. When the minute ended, she didn't let go. They stood there on that broken street corner while Marcus Whitmore, CEO of Sterling and Cross Financial, sobbed like a child. When he finally composed himself, he tried again to give her the money. She pushed it back. I don't want your money, she said quietly, but I'll make you a deal. You come back here tomorrow night, same time, and we'll talk. Really talk. You do that for 7 days, and on the last day, you can give me whatever you think the conversation was worth. Marcus laughed, a broken sound. You're negotiating with a dying man? I'm offering friendship to a lonely man. There's a difference. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she'd come to New York 3 years ago with dreams of becoming a social worker. The city had other plans. Student loans, a sick mother back in Atlanta, rent that consumed most of her paycheck from her job at a call center, the American struggle in its purest form. But unlike Marcus, she hadn't let the hardness of the city calcify her heart. For 7 nights, Marcus returned to that laundromat steps. Sarah brought coffee and thermos from her apartment, and they talked. She told him about growing up poor, about watching her parents work 3 jobs between them and still choosing joy. He told her about building his empire on the graves of his relationships, about the brother he'd betrayed in a business deal, about the family he'd abandoned for success. "You know what your problem is?" Sarah said on the 4th night. "You spent your whole life trying to matter to everyone, and you forgot to matter to anyone. Here's $1,000. Just hold my hand," the CEO said, not expecting the poor girl to change his life. On the 5th night, Marcus told her his plan. "I've been thinking. 6 months isn't long, but it's long enough to undo some damage. Want to create a foundation, properly funded, focused on helping people like you, people who are struggling but still good, still kind, but I don't know the first thing about real people anymore. I need someone who does." Sarah laughed. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. Whitmore?" "I'm offering you a purpose. And please call me Marcus. Mr. Whitmore is someone I'm trying to stop being. The transformation didn't happen overnight, Marcus. Started small, he called his brother and apologized, really apologized, without excuses or justifications. He visited his mother and sat through an entire afternoon of her stories. About his childhood, he donated anonymous bonuses to every employee who'd given years to his company, and with Sarah's help, he started the Hand Foundation, dedicated to providing direct cash assistance to working families in crisis. But the real change was internal. Marcus learned to see people again, the doorman who'd greeted him for 10 years and whose name he'd never learned. Roberto, with 3 kids and a grandson on the way. The cleaning woman who'd scrubbed his office floors, Mariah, supporting. Her family back in Honduras. Junior analyst who'd worked late every night, David, drowning in student loans but too proud to ask for help. 4 months into his 6-month diagnosis, Marcus's doctors delivered shocking news. The cancer hadn't disappeared, miracles were still rare, but it had stabilized. The tumors had stopped growing. It wasn't a cure, but it was time, precious time. Sometimes, his oncologist said, clearly confused by the medical mystery, "The will to live makes a difference. Your body chemistry has changed. I've never seen anything like it." Marcus knew exactly what had changed. He'd found his humanity again, pulled from the edge by a poor girl on a laundromat. Step who'd valued his hand over his money. The Hand Foundation grew beyond anything Marcus had imagined. Sarah became its director. And together they helped thousands of families paying medical bills, covering rent, providing groceries, offering not just money but dignity. They didn't ask for gratitude or recognition. They just helped the way Sarah had helped that homeless man with half a sandwich. Marcus lived 18 months past his diagnosis, then 2 years, then 5. The cancer never disappeared, but it became something he lived with rather than something that killed him. And every single day, he started the morning the same way, by calling Sarah and asking how he could help someone today. On the Foundation's 5th anniversary, standing before a crowd of donors and recipients, Marcus told the story of that November night. "Offered her $1,000 to hold my hand," he said. "She taught me that some things can't be boughtenly given. Kindness, connection, humanity. A poor girl with nothing showed a rich man with everything what wealth actually means. Here's $1,000. Just hold my hand," the CEO said, not expecting the poor girl to change his life. Sarah stood beside him, no longer poor, no longer struggling, but still the same person who'd chosen compassion over cash. "He's wrong about one thing," she told the crowd. "I wasn't the one who gave. That night, a scared, lonely, dying man gave me the greatest gift anyone ever could. He let me see him. Really see him? And in doing that, he reminded me why I came to this city in the first place. To help people remember they're not alone." The crowd applauded. But Marcus only heard one thing, the sound of Sarah's hand finding his, holding on, reminding him that he was human, that he mattered, that he was seen. Sometimes salvation doesn't come from medicine or miracles. Sometimes it comes from a stranger on a cold November night who values your humanity more than your money. Sometimes all we need is for someone to hold our hand and remind us that beneath the armor we build, beneath the walls we construct, We're all just people trying to find our way home. And sometimes if we're very lucky, $1,000 question gets answered with something priceless.